All right, here we are, the last panel of the day, the home stretch. So let everyone kind of settle. But thank you for being here with us today. Thanks for sticking with us. This is going to be a good one. So I'm Jason Hoyle from One America Financial, and we're very proud to be a sponsor of the event today. And we're also very passionate about long-term care protection and supporting families throughout all life stages, and including long-term care protection as a piece of the retirement puzzle. So I'd also like to thank John and Terry Hale, who are here in the front as our moderators, working through our panel today. And the topic of our panel is called the Interconnectedness of Care. And people have talked about it today a little bit. Some have alluded to it. Some have spoke to the public and private partnerships, but it's really going to take all of us through our advocacy, through public entities, through private institutions to help for better long-term care planning and better caregiving for families. So before we start our panel, we'd like to share a little bit from the 2025 PBS Caregiving documentary. It really brings forth the reality of caregiving in this country today, and we'll really tee up our panel discussion. So thank you for your time, and with that, we'll start the video to get kicked off.
Like most people, I didn't even think about caregiving until my father was diagnosed with cancer. My dad was somebody who I idolized. I used to dress up like him when I was a kid in kindergarten and get made fun of because I wanted to wear like a suit and a tie. And then to go from that to giving him a bath is quite a traumatic thing. The only good thing about somebody who has an illness that's terminal is that you really can try to enjoy the moments that you have left. We went around Philadelphia. We went to a Phillies game. We sat in the dugout. So that was a really lovely thing to be able to do. He was at a point where he needed a lot of care. I was lucky enough that I was able to be there for him, and I certainly benefited from the help that we also got. I mean, these are heroic people that are caregivers, period. Their ability to focus and give all of themselves is something that I stand in awe of.
There are only 4 kinds of people in the world: those who have been caregivers, those who currently are caregivers, those who will be caregivers, and those who will need caregiving.
The king is here. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know what number I'm on now. 6, 7, 8. I'm a wife that's caring for my husband 24/7. Whoa, 16. Good job, man. Good job. We're going this way. Today is our 21st anniversary. You gonna dance with me? Mm-hmm. Dance with me. He was diagnosed with a neurological disorder. There is no cure. I cry, but never let him see me cry. Good job. I'm like, okay, girl, let's get it together. You ready to get shaved? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, I'm doing total care, helping him to walk, cleaning him, bathing him. Thank God for your feet, right? You can walk. The entire process has been mentally draining, physically draining. One more. Yeah. To the point that I could no longer work. Okay, Kent. Insulin time. It took everything that we had left. My credit card debt went from maybe $2,000 to over $30,000. You ready? Mm-hmm. The journey's been tough, but it made me fall more in love with him. Lay back. Mm-hmm. I got you. Lay back. Even though he was disappearing It's like our love was growing. Number two, where we are now is that he has deteriorated to the point that he needed hospice care. Finally, there was help. You can get lotion, razors, any type of continence supplies, as well as a home health aide that can come in and make it a little bit easier. But as of last Wednesday, I was told that he will be released from hospice. All of the assistance that was in place for him was going to be gone. You'll color a picture for me? The social worker said that he's not deteriorating fast enough. Color the bus. No, you can't eat that. You want to color the bus? Come on. I'm like, what? He's not getting better, he's getting worse. What's the problem?
Welcome to Medicare. Briefly tell me the reason for your call today.
I had some questions in reference to when you're released from hospice. What do you mean by that? Okay, so basically, it's based on how many days you have left, and if you're not dead by that time, then you got to come off.
Correct.
Now say that back to yourself and tell me how that sounds. I was told that because he's been on hospice a year and a half and he hasn't died, he doesn't qualify for a humane way to leave this world, a way that doesn't kill the caregiver. I'm going to continue to fight for him. But without hospice help at all, I've got to figure that out by myself. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy.
Care is what makes us human. Care is the first and most fundamental human connection that we need from the time that we're born throughout our lives.
Care and caregiving is a source of pride, a source of sadness, and oftentimes joy.
So my dad is actually a medically retired Navy SEAL, and now he's like helping me just get stronger.
It's intense. It's the most intense work that somebody will ever do.
Good job.
And it's universal.
1, 2.
Do you think we look alike?
Mom, are you funny?
Care includes the work of cooking, cleaning, nursing, teaching, feeding. This care work is essential to the functioning of the American economy. So care is much more than just one issue among many. It is the foundational issue for contemporary American society.
I'm here caring for 2 sick people, which is definitely harder than anything I've ever done in my life.
But everyone is burning out, whether it's the family member or the care worker.
I feel like every hope and dream that I've ever had has now been taken from me.
There's just this simmering crisis that has been playing out. The pandemic helped us to see all of that, to see that we do need a new approach to care in this country.
We need to reimagine caregiving, not simply as something that we don't talk about, but as a universal condition that we will all experience.
Employers, in particular larger corporations, are also rethinking their approach to caregiving.
There are many, many things that we can do not just in our communities, but very much in our businesses to improve the condition of caregiving in America. Things like paid family leave, virtual work. This is not just warmth and fuzziness. This is good policy. This is good business. There's hope. I see groups coming together to talk about caregiving challenges more. And when the topic arises, walls come down. It is an opportunity for us to bridge divides, because when we're speaking about our caregiving responsibilities, we express and admit our vulnerabilities, we admit our frustrations, we ask for help, and we express empathy in ways I think that we don't in many other times.
The story of caregiving in America is everyone's story. It's profoundly unifying at a time when all we hear about is how divided we are. And the truth is that everyone benefits from a strong care infrastructure in this country. Doesn't matter who you are, where you live, what you do, where you come from, who you call family, you need care. That unity is powerful.
Everybody, my name is Terry Hale, and as our panelists approach and come up and have a seat, I just want to ask, how many of you can relate to what you just saw? Whether you've been a caregiver, or you think you might be, or whether you've loved someone who needs care. It really touches the heart, and a powerful, powerful view at the intensity of being a caregiver, and we have Tom to thank for that. And it leads us and sets us up for talking about something that we really don't want to talk about or even think about. And it's that time of life when we cannot take care of ourselves, when we're going to need somebody else to come in and help us at whatever level with some aspect of daily living, if not all of it. 7 out of 10 people 65 and older at some point are going to need that help. Now, if you're like me, you're thinking, I'm the 3 that's not going to need it. It's a very tough thing to think about. And the question is, who's going to provide that care? Who will it be? Will it be a family member, a friend, a spouse? Will it be a paid caregiver in a long-term care facility or somebody who comes to your home? Today, we're going to talk about the tremendous demand for that care, the smoldering crisis in the availability of both paid and unpaid informal caregivers, the immense physical, emotional, mental, and financial strain that we just saw in that little bit of the documentary, and also the rewards of being a caregiver, how it's impacting families and employers, and also the public policy issues that need to be addressed.
Good afternoon, everyone. Could I have a slide, please? The one slide of the day that kind of sets up the rest of this presentation. In the middle, we have those who play a part in addressing the challenges of caregiving. From top left to right, employers, government agencies and policymakers, the media, individuals and families, the health and long-term care sector, nonprofit organizations, advocates, paid caregiver workforce, the insurance and financial services industry, foundations, and you. As the title of this slide suggests, the interconnectedness of care. It's going to take all of them and all of us to effectively deal with these challenges, to solve these challenges, to make life a little bit better. And as the slide implies, it really does take a village. And our panel includes many members of that village, and I'd like to ask each of them to introduce themselves, tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you do around caregiving and retirement security.
Start with me?
Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Jill Kozney. I am the Chief Advocacy Officer for the American Council of Life Insurers. ACLI is the largest trade association representing the life insurance industry. We have 275 member companies, including One America, and they represent altogether 95% of this sector. So I'd like to say two things about ACLI's role in the caregiving conversation, and there are so many dots to connect, as you just noted. At its core, insurance gives people the ability to navigate risks that they wouldn't be able to handle on their own. And so we are in a position to help provide ways for people to, for pennies on the dollar, avoid financial calamity. The second thing I'll say is that ACLI sits at the intersection between the private market and public policy. We see our role as providing information and solutions to help public policy officers advance policies that help reach more people. And we see ourselves, we work hard to be kind of a partner to policymaking in addressing those problems and finding solutions.
Thank you, Terry and John. Thank you, Harkin, for having us here. Thank you, One America. Thanks, everyone. I'm Tom Kyoto. I'm one of the executive producers of the caregiving documentary. Not as good looking as Bradley Cooper, but
close.
Thank you. How kind of you. And I'm also the executive producer of national productions at WETA, the PBS flagship station in our nation's capital. More importantly, I've been a caregiver 4 times. And so this film, our own lives, almost everyone in the room raised your hand, have informed what this film was going to become and has become. So I'm delighted to be here to talk to you about why we did this film, why we do what we do in public media. We address topics that affect many Americans, and a number that's been used for a very long time prior to this film is that there are 53 million unpaid family caregivers in our country. A RAND report done in 2024, commissioned by the Elizabeth Dole Foundation, actually upped that estimate to over 105.4 million. It's definitely there, in between there, but think about it. That's a third of our nation that are unpaid family caregivers, with a cost in lost income of estimated cost of over $67 billion in income that these caregivers receive. There are paid caregivers. The paid caregivers earn under $23,000 a year and spend a third of it on the individual or loved one that they're caring for. So we have a lot to talk about. I'll stop there and turn it to my friend Fran.
I want to express gratitude for being here as well. It's one of the most amazing experiences for me. My name is Fran Mansell. I come to you from Dubuque, Iowa area. I am a retired certified nursing assistant and direct support professional. And I served Iowans in long-term care and those with developmental disabilities for 33 years without a break. So I am currently a consultant with Iowa Caregivers out of West Des Moines. There is no other organization that I know of in Iowa that supports and has as its mission service and support of direct care workers in Iowa, no matter what setting that they work in. I'm just very honored to advocate with Iowa Caregivers. I do invest time in advocating for direct care workforce needs. I do outreach to Iowa legislators with spending time at the Capitol. They need to know who we are and what we do. And also I also do outreach to public forums, wherever, because I think the public needs to be informed of the dynamics that are going on in the lives of direct care workers. So, but the number one concern of advocacy is, I always call it the 3 R's: recruitment, recruiting those into the field, retention, maintaining them once they're there, and also recognition. They need to be recognized for who they are and what they do.
Thanks, Fran.
Thank you, Fran. I love that so much. Whether you're a formal caregiver or informal, as Bradley Cooper said, these are our heroes. So my name is Amy Chen, and I'm with One America Financial, and Our mission at One America is to be there for our customers to deliver certainty when they need us most at times like this, when there's a caregiving, long-term care event, retirement. And we do that with our products and guidance. And so I lead the claims operation, and it's my honor to support families as they go through the caregiving journey. And that's not a one moment. It's a long journey many times. And so however we thank you all for coming together to raise awareness, because again, as we all come together, we can help families and make a difference for them.
Thank you, Amy. Well, as you see, we have a stellar panel. The way we're going to do this is John and I are going to tag team, and we're each going to take turns interviewing the panelists to get at the heart of some of what they bring to this discussion and conversation. And then also, we invite you to ask questions. And Jason, if you wouldn't mind bringing me my cell phone. At the table, there is a phone number on here for you to submit it via Google text, and those at home, I think, are seeing a number as well. So we want to have time to get your questions as well. But we're going to start with Tom, the executive producer of what is an award-winning documentary on caregiving. It's 2 hours long. I have seen it, and it is so moving. And if you've been a caregiver or are going to be a caregiver, so many can relate to it, you will absolutely be moved to tears at different moments during this. Tell us about what else is in the documentary. We just saw the tip of the iceberg, but what are the other things you cover in this?
Okay, and I'd also like to thank you very much. I'd like to also say you'll be moved to tears, and as you saw in the one clip, you might be moved to laughter. Because if we don't laugh, we're going to cry a little bit. Melcoma, the woman who cared for her husband she was married to for nearly 25 years, really delivered what it's like to be a caregiver on the screen in a very short period of time. And we did this film because we wanted all of us to see our story up there through someone else. And if you maybe saw one little piece of something, it gets us to talk about it. It gets us to understand who caregivers are and how important they are at a tipping point in our nation. So what else do you, yes?
Do you mind if I just jump in there? Because when we think about heroes, I just wanted to pull on that thread because I think it's just so important that with caregiving, two things can be true. There's so much love and beauty.
Yep.
And then there's also the tough pieces that we'll talk a lot about. But as we advocate for caregivers and support them, I just wanted to pull on that. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a great deal of joy in caregiving. When my mother was in the last 3 months of her life, when she was told, we were told all we could do is keep you comfortable. I didn't know what was going to come out of my mouth in that hospital room, and I said, Mom, you don't know what the best day of your life is going to be. You don't know when that's going to be. And we don't always know. It is not our decision when we're going to go and move on. We don't know. And so this is that story. It's both a story of joy, but it's a story of great passion. And I'd like to say one thing about caregivers, and I'll pick on you if it's okay.
It's fine.
This is the front line. Caregivers have sometimes a higher mortality rate. Healthcare, mental health issues, caregivers, our lives can be impacted by caregiving. But I will tell you, in audiences large and small, and I got to say this at the United Nations, I'd hire a caregiver, not just as a caregiver, but as an executive in a firm over most anyone, because they can multitask. They know how to deal in crisis. They know how to keep a family together. They know how to budget. They know how to do a lot. They make great executives for any firm. So in this film, 2 hours, also it's part of a public media platform called Wellbeings at wellbeings.org. And we created, in addition to the 2 hours, the film airs on PBS. You can watch it anytime at pbs.org or go to wellbeings.org. It airs on PBS stations for 4 years, and we created 18 short films, because you can't get everything in the film, where we address additional issues, faith-based caregiving, caregiving for young people. We tell the story, we tell the 100-year history of caregiving. We go back to the development of the social safety net, Social Security, during FDR's administration, but we could have gone back to the Civil War and further. And a wonderful tidbit in the film is that the person, now Franklin Delano Roosevelt did not talk about these topics and the social safety net so much in his campaign for president. It was his first Secretary of Labor, Frances Perkins, a woman who did give it a lot of thought, and she helped to develop the social safety net. When women were, during the war, were working, we needed childcare. She had thought about that. That was a very influential time in caregiving. So we see the 100-year history. You saw Rosalind Carter up on the screen, who really coined the words in a more contemporary way over the last 40 years, working on mental health and caregiving. And the film tells, obviously, the personal stories. We're storytellers, captured from the individuals who provide the care. A number of experts are in the film talking about the impact, from economic impact to policy, to what we can do and where we're at. And then there are other elements of the platform that perhaps I'll get to talk about, but we have a digital platform where people can send in their own stories and tell them. In a film I did a couple of years ago that I executive produced with Ken Burns on the youth mental health crisis in America, we had 15,000 young people tell their stories of lived experience in mental health. We want that same thing, and that's what's been happening with caregiving, where people share their stories or share messaging. Then we find out we're not alone.
One surprising thing that we talked about is that you found out how many children are involved as caregivers. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so the majority of caregivers have historically been women, and they've been women of color. New news that we learned from the film, you saw a woman in the film speaking, Ai-jen Poo. She's an activist that really works for paid caregivers to improve their working situation and their living situation. And Ai-jen reported in last June when we premiered the film that we now have maybe 30-some% now are male caregivers. We also discovered through the RAND report that there are over 14 million veterans who are caregivers, and they often will be caring for fellow veterans. There are 5.5 million kids under the age of 18 that are caregivers. It's astonishing when you think about it. What we learned from that is, in a school, you come in late as a high school student for class, and you put your head down, and you get punished and sent to the principal's office for being tired and maybe not doing your homework. But if, like the state of Rhode Island, you did a survey of all the kids that are in school and say, are you a caregiver? They find out 40% of the kids are. You might not punish them, you might help them. That is exactly why we do films like this, and I think we're uniquely positioned in public media to create films like this.
One more real quick question. We want to get the other panelists. What would you say the overall impact has been of this so far, and how many people have seen it worldwide?
Millions. We're delighted that it's also being seen internationally. A number of countries we worked with. We launched the national campaign at the United Nations, and we also did our first big premiere last June and met with other countries to talk about how we compared. But in the first 2 months of the film was rebroadcast on PBS stations more than 2,000 times. And we did hundreds of screenings and panel discussions like this around the country at universities and through organizations. I was so pleased that SHRM, the professional HR organization with 340,000 members, was a partner of ours. We had 36 sponsors and partners. One America is one of them, one of our lead partners. But SHRM talked all over the country using this film about creating compassionate caregiving policies, which we started at my PBS station that I work at. Now I can take time off for caregiving, and if I can't use my time, I can give it to my fellow employees.
That's fantastic.
So this continues. It's a process where people are watching it, and we hear from folks all the time about the impact of it. And we just hope more people will watch it. We hope you'll watch it if you haven't.
Thank you for your great work, and we want to talk more to you. But right now, John's going to help us understand better the role of the paid caregiver.
Well, we are absolutely blessed today to have Fran Mansell with us. I have known Fran for a long, long time. I've been an advocate and an activist in this arena, and I just have to say that Fran is truly an outstanding ambassador for this occupation. So we're very happy you're with us today. Just a couple facts. Quick snapshot of this workforce. It's one of America's largest at 5.3 million people who do this work. That's an estimated 50,000 folks in Iowa. Fran, first question for you. Help us understand who the paid caregivers are, what they do, where they work.
First of all, thank you for that compliment.
You're welcome. It's deserved.
It's a good pat on the back. Appreciate it. Thank you much. Well, it was mentioned it's hard to get an exact estimate, but I think there's an estimated anywhere from 40 to 65,000 paid caregivers in Iowa. And they're often referred to as just direct care workers. That's an umbrella title for that's inclusive of all of them. They work in both the rural and the urban areas in Iowa, in different communities. And majority of them are women. I have very few male caregivers that I have worked with over the years. Many of them are Afro-Americans. They have a variety of different job titles. They go by so many, and they have a variety of different provider work settings that they work in. They work in assisted living communities, they work in group homes, they work in residential care facilities for the disabled. There's veterans facilities that they work in, there's home care, there's hospice, and of course there's hospitals where they can work in acute care or they can work in skilled care. So, and because of all those different titles and the different settings that they work in, the titles include, home health aides, that includes medication aides, rehabilitation aides, restorative aides. Some of them are just community living specialists because they work in the community homes. Resident treatment workers, care companions. And with those different titles and those different settings, there's some confusion over just the different types and levels of training that they might need for their unique caregiving role, because they're different and their pay scales vary depending on where they work. Some perform more of a housekeeping role, some of them a skilled nursing role. That was mine as a CNA. They're not all CNAs, and many of them think they are. Some of them have medication dispensing roles. They're certified medication aides. Some more of a public community outing role, support. They're supported while they're shopping and taking out for recreational activities and doctor appointments. So paid caregiver services are needed and they are essential in a variety of settings and go by a variety of titles and different pay. So,
Fran, tell us why you decided to become a certified nurse aide.
Well, that goes back probably to my growing up. I grew up in a family of 6 brothers and 6 sisters, a large family. And my mom was a loving caregiver. She taught us how to care for each other with respect and with dignity and with kindness, with a sense of our well-being. So my caregiving profession began with how my mom valued the essential need for care and support, and how her caregiving created an atmosphere of dignity and an atmosphere of respect. I learned that, I gained that, I took that on. It became part of my careism. So I started with high school teaching after I left college, and I felt it wasn't giving me real meaning and purpose in my life. And I wasn't giving meaning and purpose to the lives of other people as I expected I would. So I left teaching after 10 years, and I entered healthcare as a direct support professional, working with those with severe disabilities. Even in a foster care unit I worked. And when I did that, it was an immediate awareness that this is the person-centered, heart-to-heart human connection with others that I grew up with. And it just made sense to me. So I loved going to work every day. And let me just give you one quick example which explains and will will tell you why I became a caregiver and why I am today. A resident that I took care of was actively dying, and his wife, his son, and 2 daughters were all in the room together, and their smaller children, and they were running around all over the place. And when I walked into the room, I said hi to everyone, and I said, I'm just checking on how all of you are doing and how our beloved Tom is doing. He opened his eyes. He glanced around the room at his family, and he said in a very quiet, whispering voice, I love all of you. I love all of you. And then, I walked over to his bed. I put my hand on his hand, and he looked at me and he said, Fran, thank you for everything. And he repeated it, thank you for everything. For me, his life was everything to me. The direct care I provided him was everything to him. So the caring words that he provided me meant everything to the essential value of my caregiving. One of the greatest recognitions and compliments you can receive as a caregiver. Caregiving is so foundational and so fundamental from the time our life begins to the time that it ends. Caregiving means everything because it goes to the very heart and soul of another human being. And that interconnection that you have with each other is profound. That's why I'm a caregiver. I love it.
I think it would be fair to say if we could duplicate Fran and put him in every long-term care setting, people would be better served. And Fran, every time I listen to you, if you didn't tear up over the video, you might tear up just listening to Fran. So thank you for what you do. There's so many more questions that I'd like to get to, but for purposes of time, Terry, I'll turn this back to you. Thanks so much for everything you do.
Fran, and thank you for your service. It's invaluable. I want to turn now to Amy. As a Vice President at One America Financial, you bring a couple of topics to us today, 2 perspectives. One on how to prepare financially for long-term care so you can have some help from great people like Fran, but also the employer perspective when, as Tom intimated, employees are also family caregivers. It's estimated that 1 in 4 employees is also an informal caregiver. So you might be working 40 hours a week or more at work and another 10 to 40 hours a week being a caregiver. So tell us, in fact, the Society of Human Resources said that trend is the most consequential workforce issue of the decade. So I know that your organization has looked at this and dealt with it. What is the impact on the employee and the employer, and how are employers responding?
Well, I first am just so honored. I'm a little shook. I'm so happy. And my team and I talk to families and caregivers every day, and there's always a story. So when we talk about these moments, whether it's at work or it's with a life policy or a long-term care policy, every story is unique, and every story is full of heart and hope. So for us as leaders, all of us, no matter where we work, how can we be there for each other and support just where everybody is in their journey? So thank you, so much heart. So I'll start with the impact on the employee. And we saw in the video, and I know that all of us have some connection to caregiving, but when you're an employee and caregiving, you've got at least 2 jobs, probably more. Because have you all heard about the sandwich generation, right? You're taking care of your young children and also an elder parent and working. That's an example. And we get those calls all the time when we're helping families. A daughter might call, I'm on my way to soccer practice, but I just wanted to check real quick on the status of this facility, and we can take care of it for her real fast and she can move on her day. So as an employee, there's a lot of overwhelm, a lot of stress as you're working to be 2 places at once. There's also this stigma that if I'm a caregiver at work, that must mean that I'm less committed. And there can be nothing further from the truth there. And you mentioned that. We know that caregivers come with all sorts of transferable skills. It's just that we as employers need to make sure that we're giving them support. And also, how do we get rid of that stigma so that there's an openness in the culture that drives an ability to talk about their caregiving so they're not isolated, because an impact of being a caregiver is that there's isolation, which leads to high rates of depression and other health issues. In the workplace, that isolation can mean that you will pass up stretch opportunities, promotions, and so that impacts your salary and your salary growth over the years. So we really need to, as employers, lean into awareness, education, and having conversation about what it means to be a caregiver at work. What this looks like so that's helping our fellow team members not fall into crisis, right? And supporting each other. For employers, this stress and overwhelm looks like lost productivity, absenteeism. It's estimated to cost the US businesses around $43 billion a year in lost productivity. And this is something that's really concerning, and SHRM has done a lot of work on this in the last couple of years, the talent pipeline. Every day, someone ages into the baby boomer, 65 or older, 10,000 people every day, and we need to fill the talent pipeline. But AARP reports 25% of millennials are caregivers, and they feel the stress. And so how do we as employers engage and provide an environment of openness so that we can help our employees come to work with whatever flexible solutions they may need and make it a win-win situation? Because when we retain employees and we engage them, we drive discretionary effort and innovation. So it truly is a win-win to recognize the caregiver in the workplace.
And I know one example of what you've done at your organization is you created an employee resource group for employees who are caregivers. Tell us about that and how employees have responded to that.
Well, I have you to thank, because our first meeting last year was around the caregiving documentary. As we see more and more of the population age, we knew that many of our associates had caregiving, and we thought, what a wonderful, we're sponsoring this documentary, let's get the conversation going. So we built our caregiving community, and our first meeting was to show a bit of the documentary. We had a panel that included our CHRO, and she was vulnerable and shared her story of her disabled daughter and how she has, her career progression with that, and how supportive we are at One America Financial to support caregivers. So we had the panel conversation, that was powerful, and then we opened it up. And we had a lot of attendance, which was fantastic. But if I had to summarize the feeling in that room, it was relief. And it was so powerful to see employees engaging with each other. The first woman stood up to say, my mom was just diagnosed with Alzheimer's. It puts a lot of pieces together. We didn't understand why she had changed so much. And she just broke down. The room came together for her. After that meeting, she had several new friends and some great resources. Another piece of the caregiving community that's really important, and for us as employers, we are already providing benefits that caregivers are probably too busy to understand exactly or to investigate what benefits might be there for them. So I would encourage you to consider your EAP benefit. Most companies have them. Many of them have caregiving resources, whether it's a digital platform to find caregiving, emotional support for caregivers, right? Or legal and financial advice. There's EAPs and all sorts of other benefits that you have that you can, just by talking about it, share more awareness and support your employees.
We've been talking all day about preparing financially.
Yes.
Most people don't want to think about losing independence, and they don't want to think about needing care. and they're more likely to plan for their death by writing their obituary or buying a funeral in advance than they are to think about saving for the period of decline. So what is the financial services industry doing that is helping people plan and prepare specifically for long-term care? Because it's expensive.
It is, and I love this, the interconnectedness. So we play a part in helping people protect not just their assets, but protect their family. Because when there isn't a plan, there's the financial piece, that's very, very important, and also the planning piece. So if you choose not to have a product, that's fine, but then what is your plan? So for us as an industry, we have to support with education. Many times people think that Medicare will be there for that journey, and that's not gonna fill the void of long-term care. And you made the point about people don't wanna think about that period of decline. And as an industry, we've done a lot about sharing data, and it's not happy numbers, right? And so it's human nature just to turn off on that. That'll be the other, I'll be one of the three that isn't impacted. Yeah. But when we can change that data and we can take a beat and make it human, right? Bring the heart to it and bring storytelling, that's when we start to see ourselves. And we think about life insurance and we know that we're leaving something for our loved ones. That's the same thing with long-term care. Because if you don't have, or a plan, long-term care and a plan, if you don't have that plan, families fall apart. It's not just that you're protecting your assets, but, well, and those will then dwindle down. If there's not a plan, people have to respond with crisis. So to help people think about, what do you want to leave for your loved ones? Do you want your son and daughter to have to take a break from their careers? 32% of caregivers will leave their job role at some time. Do you want them to have time to parent? So helping people think about what do they want during that journey is really, really powerful. So storytelling, long story short, is the critical piece.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amy. John?
Jill, you worked on Capitol Hill in D.C. For 3 decades. You were chief of staff to our very own Senator Charles Grassley. You worked on the Senate Finance Committee staff. You know politics, and you know public policy. Let's call on that life insurance and public policy background to talk about some key issues in long-term care. First, you've mentioned that long-term care is the greatest financial concern for Americans next to retirement savings. What actions are people taking or not taking to respond to that concern?
You're talking about policymakers. What actions are they taking?
Sure.
And I'm so struck by the kinds of policies that we talked about getting ready for today, and how much strong bipartisan support there is in all kinds of areas, whether it's retirement policy or long-term care policy or paid family medical leave or even disability coverage for people. So you get to where's kind of the will to move things forward. And I had the privilege to work for Senator Grassley for 30 years, and for 25 of those years, Senator Harkin was his colleague. And the two of them couldn't agree, or couldn't represent more different philosophies, except for that they had an intense shared value in talking about problems, bringing their various policy solutions to the table, and doing the hard work to legislate and govern. And they were very successful together in a lot of ways doing that, and they supported each other doing that. So how do you kind of break the juggernaut on the problems that we all know exist today? Yeah. With these good policy ideas that are laying around out there? And I think this group represents the forces that it will take to make that happen, whether that's the storytelling through these big media platforms and beautiful storytelling that you've done with your video, the grassroots, activism and powerful credentialing that somebody like Fran brings to this conversation, what Amy's doing in a big workplace to kind of, get rid of the stigma and normalize all of these challenges that everybody faces. I think there's a cumulative effect for that, and the Harkin Institute is bringing all of that together, and I think that's really important for organizing things, because momentum for political action, policy making comes from the ground up, not from the top down. So this is a really important thing to bring forward, and energy to create and replicate every which way you can. So the policies, for example, there's a tremendous amount of interest in the Congress on long-term care policy making. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. A lot of lawmakers have firsthand experiences. They're drawing upon direct firsthand knowledge of the cost of care and the cost of caregiving. They've seen it themselves. And then you have this massive demographic shift that Amy talked about, 10,000 people a day turning 65. That's real. The caregiving needs are going to grow exponentially. So long-term care is fundamentally tied to retirement security, and there are policy proposals laying around out there. There's not critical mass to move them. There's a bipartisan initiative to have a major study about the affordability on aging-related issues, and that's long-term care and health care and housing and all of the bucket of issues facing the aging. Well, that would be a study. Yeah. And even that has been reintroduced over a period of 10 years. So I think this momentum building that's happening here is very important because the ideas exist. There's bipartisan support for them. They are all tremendously expensive in terms of federal budgeting, and that's fiscal headwind. But then you have to have the incoming so that you start prioritizing it. And I think the shared experience couldn't be more important for kind of shifting that dynamic a bit.
Well, Jill, let's zoom in for a minute on the public policies that relate to so much of what we've been talking about, so much has been emphasized in the video. The unpaid caregivers.
Yeah.
There are things out there like paid family leave, tax credits for those who are providing care, Social Security credits for those who have left the workforce but who are doing some valuable work and they've lost their credits, so should we add them? Paying family caregivers for the work they do. Which of those are most resonant? Which of those have the best chance of actually moving forward? I know that puts you on the spot, asks for a crystal ball, but I'm just wondering what your perspective is on that.
Well, there's a piece of legislation called Credit for Caring, and it's been introduced 3 times, so it has very strong bipartisan support, and it would create a new tax credit for family caregivers, a $5,000 up to $5,000 tax credit, and it would help family caregivers cover out-of-pocket expenses like respite care, supplies, home modifications, very practical things like that. It has not been marked up by either tax writing committee. It's a tax proposal. So it has all this great bipartisan support, but it's not moving. But it's a very practical idea. So it's in its simplicity, that's a lot to going for it, to have that simplicity and straightforwardness that would help family caregivers very directly. There's a bit of good news. Last year, Senator Fisher of Nebraska got permanency for a new tax credit for employers to help cover more paid family leave, not paid medical leave, paid family leave for their workers. This is something she'd been pushing for 10 years, and she got it put into law 10 years ago. But last year, she got it made permanent and expanded. It's easier to cover more workers. You don't have to have worked for a company for as long. Other tweaks to make it reach more people. And it goes at a critical gap, the difficulty of smaller employees providing paid family medical leave. So that's something to celebrate. And she did that last year. She had strong bipartisan support. She had tremendous will of her own. She actually had tripartisan support. Her co-sponsor in the Senate was Senator King of Maine, an independent. So what made her initiative different than this credit for caring? Part of it is the score, the budgetary score. But there's ways to work through that. So I think it's getting critical mass, having political organization, supporting it and driving it. And there are some very strong leaders in the Congress on both sides interested in that.
May I add? We all know caregiving is born out of crisis. You don't know when you're going to become a caregiver, right? Neither are we educated in early ages that this is what it's going to look like. There are a handful of states that actually you're able to apply as a family caregiver and have an income of up to nearly, I believe, $70,000 a year to be the full-time caregiver. If you have ever priced caregiving or paid for caregiving, it can be an extremely expensive you pay $40 an hour. When we were caring for my mother 39 years ago, I did 20 hours. We could afford 4 hours of a home health aide. When my eldest brother moved in with my brother and I, when he contracted a rare brain disease, with my son and I had at one point had 24 hours of caregivers, and his insurance only paid for a portion of that. It can bankrupt a family, literally, and you don't know it's coming. So hopefully Congress can move a little faster.
Well, and I think to your point about the cost is tremendous for individual families. There's also a tremendous cost to government. The biggest cost driver in Medicaid, which is a program that was built to provide health care to low-income people, the biggest cost driver in Medicaid is nursing home care. So there needs to be action to address these structural, misalignments that are, building upon building. And so I think those are drivers for, legislative action at the national level too.
For me as a caregiver, for my son, the pandemic enabled me to stop working in an office. I'm a single dad. I was able to be a caregiver and do my full-time job. I don't care if it was 100 hours a week, but I was able to be home, and I was grateful for that. That made a difference in my ability, and it reduced levels of anxiety that I can't even describe when I was trying to do both.
Well, and we did that in response to the crisis of COVID.
Yes.
But it introduced us all to technology that we can leverage to work that way and be very productive that way, and that will linger forever.
Yeah,
I think.
we believe in remote work now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On this point, I'll just make this final point, and then Terry, I'll turn it over to you to see if we've got some questions. But as we reference COVID, I want to remind everybody, when I look at this guy, certified nurse aides were the people who went into the nursing homes, to the assisted living centers, who performed home care at the risk of their own illness, at the risk of their own lives. Over 1,400 aides in nursing homes died during the COVID episodes because they were willing to go to work. I have no idea, don't have any numbers for how many more direct care workers that worked in assisted living, that worked in home care, that worked in all the other settings, how many of them pass away. But I just think when we talk about heroes, those folks are right at the top. So having said that, Terry, I'm going to go to you and see if we got any questions.
Absolutely. We do have a question, actually two, talking about the high cost of long-term care. And one person's asking, what are your thoughts on public long-term care insurance? How can we move toward getting a national social insurance program for it, mentioning Washington State as the first one offering it on a pretty limited basis?
I think that the states have traditionally in every policy area been terrific laboratories. So Washington State has experimented, and there have been some things that have worked and some things that have not worked. So that's an area to study. You also have many states that have PFML programs for paid leave, and that's an important way to keep income flowing when you need to take time off to care for someone in your family who's sick, or a small child or an older person. And in 14 of those states, the private insurance market provides the service, and that enables it to be a little bit more cost efficient and seamless for the consumer use of it. So there are examples going on out there in all of these areas that affect the ability of caregivers and people who need care to finance and have the structure that they need to get the care that they need.
Amy, did you have a comment on long-term?
No,
okay.
you said, I was
okay.
going to talk about paid family. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think we may be near the point to ask our panelists one of the final questions, John.
The final question is this. For each member of the panel, we talked about you're all part of the village here. What we'd like you to do as panel members is to phrase a question, ask a question of everyone here, everyone viewing in Cyberland. What could they do? All the theys out there watching this who care about this. What is one thing that they could do to positively impact caregiving in America? Anyone can start.
I'll go. I would say have the conversations. At work, look to your right, look to your left, have that empathetic curiosity. What's going on with the people that you work with? And seek to understand. That openness in our work cultures will make such a difference for so many. Started conversations with your loved ones, and it's not easy. But to say, and again, use that curiosity instead of the bleak data. I wonder what care would look like for us as a family, for you, Dad. And what would you hope for all of us? And have that conversation. It's not easy to get it started, but it'll mean a world of difference for you and your family.
Great response. Fran?
Well, I would say that, I think I said first and foremost, it takes a genuine passion and love for caregiving and experiencing how rewarding it is to develop relationships that are based on compassion and dignity and respect. And that interconnectedness in caregiving that caregivers have with those for whom they provide care is what kept me in the profession, what keeps many of them in the profession. We have a lot of challenges, certainly, but I'd like to just ask, when was the last time that you encountered a caregiver in any situation and you thanked them for their service? I think we do that often, and you see it on TV and different scenarios where veterans they always say, thank you for your service. I would encourage you as the public to thank caregivers for their service and who they are and what they do, because they do have challenges with short staffing immensely, and they have challenges with wages and benefits that we're not earning a living wage. We struggle with that. I ended up working a part-time job along with my full-time job for 12 years. I did that because I didn't want to give up caregiving. I loved that. So I worked on a computer for a computer company for 12 years. I got an outstanding award for it, but it was not my passion at all. So affirm them and compliment them and recognize them for who they are and what they do. Because lack of wages and benefits and lack of recognition and even be realized that even after my 30 years as a direct care worker, it was 25 as a CNA. When I left, I still am considered and recognized as an entry-level position. Caregiving is entry-level. There is no credentials or portability of your credentials and your educational training that's recognized by the state that you can take and advance. We need to professionalize the workforce. Those are some of the challenges.
Thank you, Fran. Thank you.
But recognize them.
That whole issue of respect.
Yes.
Appreciation for the role that they play and the way that they do it. They are invaluable when they do it well. So thank you. Tom.
It's a big question, so I'm going to talk fast so I can get two answers in. One is find the joy in caregiving, which Amy talked about. There is joy in caregiving. If I were in a foxhole, who would I want to be with? This man, right? That caregivers, the more we learn the stories, the more humbled I become as a human being. And there are two things that have struck me during the years I've been working on this topic. One is caregiving is for the public good. You become more whole of a person if you're a caregiver. And the other thing is, caregiving is not just meant for some or the others. I live in a major city. I lived on the East Coast and I live on the West Coast now. And think about how many people walk across the street when they see a homeless person. You don't know why that person's homeless. And why do we do that? We should walk towards anyone that we think needs help And we're going to learn as much as we're going to give. And I think that's critically important. Really final fast thing. I have a family, an extended family who I love very much, and there are 6 sisters and a brother. And their parents are at a stage where the mom has in her 4th or 5th year of Parkinson's. And you know, when you're a sibling, you may be the sibling that's doing the caring, and then you wonder why the others aren't there as much as you are. So the mom and dad just moved from one sibling caring on the West Coast to the other sibling caring on the East Coast. And there was a lot of guilt from the person who was no longer going to be caring. Have I not doing enough? And this was 4 weeks ago. The sister who took the mom and dad and set up caregiving, and her daughter, she's a single parent too, in Baltimore, Maryland, said to her sister, I'm bringing mom and dad here to live, not to die. So to give them the fullest lives, that respect extends to how we caregive. And there's so much we can talk about. It's a critical time in our nation to pay attention to one another.
Thank you so much for helping us do that better, Tom. Thank you.
The end of the video that we saw at the beginning of this session said that we hear about how divided we are all the time, but we are united as caregivers. And I think that's very powerful. And so I'll pull a thread from all of my fellow panelists and say that I think raising your voice as a caregiver or as someone who loves somebody who is being cared for and telling your story and kind of opening it up and making it a nonpartisan thing, if you will, something that kind of breaks the sound barrier so that everybody who's involved in making policy happen or making business products happen or making the actual work happen knows that it's just breaking the sound barrier. Fran, I love you making it akin to veterans, right? Something that is so part of our culture and recognized as part of our culture. I have high hopes that that can happen just by the numbers. We're also exposed to it. But I think talking with each other and telling our stories about it and making it just part of our social fabric is really important, and that will help to nudge all of the other things along.
Important topics, an extraordinary panel. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank each of you. Thank each of you, and thank you, folks out in cyberspace. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate your interest. If I could sum up what we've heard today, I think it would be this: that caregiving may be, and maybe not even say is one of the most important public policy, quality of life, financial security, and economic issues facing America in the next decade. I hope that somehow this conversation has helped move that conversation forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to Raina with closing comments.
Okay, great.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, such a wonderful way to close this day-long symposium, to just reaffirm the interconnectedness of all of our relationships, all of our economic concerns, and that sharing stories is so powerful. So thank you to speakers, attendees, sponsors for making this 4th annual symposium possible. And we'll see you next year in Washington, D.C.